Chapter 2. A Chance Meeting. At the train station, Oblonsky met Vronsky while waiting for the train from St. Petersburg. "Who are you meeting?" asked Vronsky. "I've come to meet a pretty woman," replied Stiva. "My sister Anna." "Oh, Karenin's wife," said Vronsky. "Yes, so you know her?" "No, not really. I don't remember," said Vronsky. The name Karenin gave him the impression of someone very official and boring. "But you must know my respected brother-in-law. He's a high government official," said Stiva. "Yes," replied Vronsky. "I know him by reputation and by sight. I know that he's quite clever and religious. Anyway, I'm here to welcome my mother." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of the train approaching. When the train came to a stop, a young guard jumped off near Vronsky. Vronsky asked the guard which carriage the Countess Vronsky was in. The guard pointed, and Vronsky went to the carriage door. Just as he reached it, a lady was getting out of the carriage. At a glance, Vronsky knew that the lady was very wealthy. He looked closely at her lovely face because he thought he had seen something special there. As Vronsky did, she also looked at him and gave him a friendly, curious look. Vronsky nodded and then climbed the steps into the carriage. His mother, an old lady with black eyes and curls, smiled at him with her thin lips. "So you got my telegram," she said. "Are you well?" "Did you have a good journey?" asked Vronsky as he sat down beside her. Just then the lady Vronsky had seen leaving come back into the carriage, looking confused. "Have you found your brother?" asked Countess Vronsky. Suddenly, Vronsky knew that this was Anna Karenina, Oblonsky's sister. "Your brother is just outside," said Vronsky. "Please wait here, I will call him." Anna smiled and sat next to the countess. Vronsky left the train and saw Oblonsky through the crowd. He called him over and said, "Your sister is sitting next to my mother in this carriage." As soon as Anna saw her brother from the window, she came out of the carriage and ran to him. She threw her arms around him and kissed his cheeks warmly. Vronsky helped his mother down the carriage steps. "She's quite charming, isn't she?" said the countess to her son. Then to Anna she said, "I can speak plainly at my age. I must confess I have lost my heart to you." Anna looked delighted. She kissed the countess and then offered her hand to Vronsky. Vronsky kissed her hand and felt a great joy. Just then there was a great commotion. The station master and several conductors ran past. Their faces were frightened and pale. Vronsky suggested the women go back into the carriage. Then he and Stiva followed the train officials to the front of the train. It was clear that something terrible had happened. A guard had been crushed to death under the train as it had arrived. At the sight of his dead body, Stiva looked very upset, as if he were about to cry. "Oh, this is terrible," he exclaimed. There was nothing Vronsky or Stiva could do, so they returned to the carriage where Anna and the countess were waiting. "It was terrible," said Stiva. He told Anna and the countess what happened. And his poor widow was there. She threw herself on his body and said she had a large family. What an awful thing! "Isn't there anything anyone can do?" asked Anna, her eyes filled with tears. Vronsky looked at her and immediately left the carriage. When he returned a few minutes later, Stiva was telling the ladies about the latest play in Moscow. They left the carriage together and walked toward the exit. As they reached the doors, the station master came running up behind them. Addressing Count Vronsky, he said, "You gave my assistant a large sum of money, sir. What did you want us to do with it?" "Well, it's for the widow and her children, of course," replied Vronsky. "You gave money?" asked Stiva. "You are very kind." Each couple took a separate carriage and went from the station to their respective houses. On the carriage ride home, Anna asked, "Have you known Vronsky long?" "Yes. You know, he wants to marry Kitty." At this news, Anna's mood changed. "Really?" she said softly. "Now let's talk about your affairs." Stiva told Anna everything. When they arrived at house, he dropped her off the carriage and drove back to his office at the courthouse. Although Dolly had told Stiva she did not care if Anna came or not, she was relieved to see her. After all, it's not Anna's fault, she told herself. I only know her as a dear friend. When Anna came in, Dolly greeted her eagerly and kissed her. Dolly, I'm so glad to see you, said Anna. Anna listened very carefully to Dolly, and Dolly felt much better after telling her troubles. Oh, what shall I do, Anna? Asked Dolly when she had finished. Please help me. Dolly, Stiva is still in love with you, said Anna. I'm his sister and I can read his heart. He wasn't in love with the other woman. He didn't betray you in his heart. But what if it happens again? Asked Dolly. Would you forgive him? I don't think it will happen again, replied Anna. Then she thought for a moment. Yes, I would forgive him. In the end, Anna persuaded Dolly to forgive Stiva. Just after Dolly agreed to forgive her husband, Kitty arrived. She had come over to see her older sister Dolly. Kitty had never formally met Anna, but she knew who she was. Kitty hoped this fashionable woman from St. Petersburg would not think she was a silly young girl. Anna did like Kitty, and they both got along well. All three of them chatted for about an hour. Before Kitty left, she told Anna, "Oh, you must come to the grand ball next week. Many important and fashionable people will be there." "And your Count Vronsky?" asked Anna. Kitty blushed. "I had the pleasure of meeting him at the train station today," said Anna. "He seems to be a very handsome and generous man. I think I will stay for the grand ball next week." Kitty left, and Dolly told the servants to prepare dinner. That night, Dolly, Stiva, Anna, and all the children had dinner together. Dolly also called her husband Stiva, which she had not done for 3 days. This pleased Stiva very much, and he was grateful to Anna. Across town, the Sherbatskys' butler announced Levin's arrival at 7:30. When Kitty heard this, she felt excited but was also afraid. She knew why he had to come early. Levin entered the hall and found Kitty standing there alone. He looked at her with excitement, but he was also shy. "My dear Levin, I heard you had returned to Moscow," exclaimed Kitty. "How long will you stay this time?" "Well, that depends on you," he said. "I mean, what you should understand is I came to be my wife." Kitty felt overjoyed, also surprised. She was very fond of Levin, whom she had known since childhood. However, she thought of Levin more like a brother than a husband. She did not expect to feel such strong emotions at his marriage proposal, but then she remembered Vronsky, and she looked at Levin steadily. "No, it cannot be," she said softly. "Forgive me." Levin stood still for a moment. Then he said with a broken heart, "No, of course you can't. I understand." Levin was about to leave when a handsome man in a uniform came in. Levin watched Kitty greet Vronsky. Her eyes and face were bright as she looked at him. He could see that Kitty truly loved Vronsky. The next week, the grand ball was being held at a large palace in Moscow. As the guests began to arrive, the sounds of their voices and laughter filled the rooms and halls. Kitty and her mother arrived late. Kitty was the perfect image of beauty in her black dress. Many people looked at her admiringly as she walked up the steps with her mother to the grand ballroom. At once, Kitty saw that the most important people at the ball were looking together in one corner of the room. Stiva was there with Dolly. Anna, in a beautiful black velvet dress, was also there. She did not look like a woman who had an 8-year-old son. He was also there, Kitty's love, Count Vronsky. Kitty's heart beat a little faster at the sight of the uniformed count. As Kitty joined the room, Anna smiled at her and complimented her dress and beautiful appearance. Count Vronsky asked Kitty to dance. While they danced, they did not talk about anything important, but Kitty was not worried. She was sure that he would ask her to dance the most important dance of the evening, the mazurka. Kitty was sure that Count Vronsky would propose marriage to her at that time. After this first dance, Kitty had to dance with several young men who were competing to dance with her. She could not refuse them. As she danced with one of these young men, she suddenly saw Anna dancing with Count Vronsky next to her. Kitty became slightly alarmed, and she watched Anna and Vronsky closely. Anna was looking up at the Count with bright eyes. Every time Vronsky spoke to her, she seemed to be filled with joy, and her eyes became brighter. The same expression of excitement and happiness was reflected on Vronsky's face. When the mazurka finally began, Kitty was asked to dance by an old family friend, Kuronsky. She accepted because she saw that Vronsky was already dancing with Anna. The more Kitty looked at them, the more she realized that they were attracted to each other. Kitty was heartbroken. Later in that dance, Anna and Kitty found themselves dancing next to each other. Anna reached out her hand to Kitty, but Kitty ignored it and moved away. Suddenly, Anna saw the look of despair and jealousy on Kitty's face. After the dance, Anna told Vronsky she would not stay for dinner. "Thank you for the wonderful time," she said. "Now I must go home and prepare for my journey tomorrow." "So you really are leaving tomorrow?" asked Vronsky. "Yes, I must," replied Anna. Her eyes shone and her smile warmed Vronsky's heart. Early the next morning, Anna sent a telegram to her husband telling him she would leave today for St. Petersburg on the overnight train. "I must go," she told Dolly, "and I must confess the reason for my sudden departure. I have ruined it for Kitty and Vronsky. She's jealous of me, and I made the ball last night torture for her. But it's really not my fault, or at least just a little bit." "You sound like my Steve," exclaimed Dolly. "But remember, Anna, I'll always love you as my dearest friend. I won't forget what you did for me." That night, as Anna rode on the train home, she felt relieved and happy to be going home. "Soon I will see my son Seryoja and my husband," she said to herself. "Then my simple life will continue as before."